watchdogs. They got here fast.
Who are they?
They're the project's cleanup crew.
Shit! What are we gonna do?
Do? We're gonna do what they trained us to do. We're gonna kill them.
Got to admire. You gave me the boy, I give you the man! Yeah!
Show no mercy, Danny. This whole town is a project dormitory.
For a game that's never had any sort of official documentation about its cut content and other features, Manhunt 2 has had a lot of interest in the beta alpha stage of its development, especially when Rockstar Vienna was still helming it. You can see a lot of stuff like early character models and things of that sort within earlier builds, but no real explanation on their purposes outside of conjecture. And unfortunately, this meant that a lot of concepts went by the wayside when Rockstar Vienna folded and development was taken over by the main studio. Fortunately, there are some mods that restore things like unused characters and weapons and executions and things of that sort. There isn't really a definitive beta mod until now, I'd say. RazorMoon is a mod for Manhunt 2 on the computer that aims to restore a lot of cut content and concepts, and overall bring the retail game closer to maybe how Rockstar Vienna envisioned it when they started working on it. It pretty much does its job well, and it's fun. I enjoyed playing through it. It felt like a refreshed way to play through the game. The story is about the same as it was in the retail version. Two inmates of Dixmoor Asylum, Danny Lamb and Leo Casper, escape during a blackout and a riot within the asylum. While they're on the run from the authorities and other officials trying to track them down, Danny tries to learn more about his past, while Leo tries to get revenge on the project for imprisoning them for years. And gradually the two uncover a greater conspiracy that they both had ties to at one point.
I'm sorry, Danny, but it's gotta be this way.
The Pickman Bridge! Remove it. Get it out of my head so I can think straight.
If you thought I would do that, you're out of your fucking mind.
Michael? Where are we?
The gameplay is very stealth heavy for the most part, and brutal. It's par for the course for the series or anything made by Rockstar. You need to sneak through areas and avoid getting in direct conflicts with enemies, since they often outnumber you and outgun you. Your best bet is to ambush them and perform various executions to get past them. This can really vary depending on what you're carrying with you, where enemies are located, if there are environmental hazards there, and also if they've detected you. You already probably know the gist of Manhunt's gameplay, why it's so controversial, so I'm not going to beat a dead horse over that. Just figured I'd give a brief overview. Instead, let's delve right into the stuff that's interesting. What all is cut that got restored within this mod? You'll notice some immediate differences right away. The levels are all named after their internal files. For the most part, they make sense, like calling the first level Awakening Asylum, or calling the level Personality Clash Cemetery. or even calling Ritual Cleansing Burn, because they summarize the level's location or goal nicely. Some are a bit odd because they reflect earlier stages of the game's development, like the level Most Wanted, where you're being pursued by a vigilante group called the Bloodhounds, is instead called CIA Trap here, which is the level's name within the files, but it doesn't really make sense in this build or the retail build because the CIA aren't a faction. There are references to stuff like MK Ultra and things of that sort. It's possible you might have gone up against the CIA at some point, but the naming convention's just a little odd. This extends into weapons you find as well. Some of their placements reflect how they were supposed to be in the beta, like the level Best Friends originally featured the revolver instead of the light handgun, and RazorMoon reflects this by having you and your enemies wield the revolver. Meanwhile, Safe House had featured the Desert Eagle, or the heavy handgun, during the beta, and this also comes up. So instead of using the revolver only in that level, you'll use the heavy handgun and the shotgun for the most part. Some guns also appear more often alongside different weapons, so the revolver isn't just a single appearance item. You can find it in a couple other levels as well. And there are also some weapons that were cut that got restored, like the newspaper, the rather infamous dildo weapon that appears in the Sexual Deviance level, and it's as ineffective in a fight as you'd expect it to be. And as well, the machete from the first Manhunt, which is a neat addition. I wasn't sure if that was going to be in the second Manhunt, but it's present in a couple of levels, and unfortunately it does replace the katana in Broadcast Interrupted, but it's still a cool addition. Enemies also really resemble their beta counterparts, even more so than some of the mods I've seen. Like the Project Militia not only use their cool looking gas mask designs with the black uniforms, but they also use that even earlier design where they resemble the Cerberus mercenaries from the first Manhunt, except they have these dreadlock-like wires coming out of their head. The Red Kings use their much better looking masked and camouflaged designs. The Legion mostly appear with the ropes and the crosses tied to their backs, though some of them still use the inmate designs. And additionally, some enemy factions appear more often or less often depending on what level you're in. Like the Pervs, instead of just appearing in levels 3 and 4, also make an appearance in Safe House, because apparently they were supposed to be in the final shootout in the theater where Danny goes up against the Watchdogs, but the Pervs appear there instead. Similar to how the Project Militia appear as enemies in Release Therapy instead of the Legion, and there are some special designs for enemies that are supposed to be more nightmarish in Personality Clash. I'm not sure if that was ever a beta in design, but it's a cool feature and it helps add to the otherworldly atmosphere of the level. Gunplay and combat are pretty similar to the retail game, the only difference being that the crosshair doesn't have that spinning blue or red design. It's more of a stable white crosshair, and there's still the lock-on feature. It's not like the Vienna Cut or Project Vienna, where you don't lock on to enemies' heads if they're close enough, and you have to do the aiming yourself. This feels like a good middle ground, I guess. The shooting in Manhunt 2 is decent, it's nothing to write home about, but I found that you get used to its quirks, and most levels allow it to be pretty accommodating. Overall, though, I still prefer the levels where there's a mix of melee and ranged combat, because when there are too many ranged enemies, it's tough to actually do any of the executions. A lot of the cut ones are restored here, but the weird thing is, the firearm executions are not restored. Many other mods do this, including the Vienna Cut or Project Vienna, but RazorMoon doesn't do this. It just uses a single one for each different weapon, which is basically like the retail game. I'm not sure why that's the case. I found it odd, I would have expected that to be one of the first things that would have restored, where you would have the 3 different levels of execution depending on how long you hold the left mouse button down. But it's not present. There are also some environmental executions that aren't present here, like the vending machine and the dumpster in Safe House. They were also surprises, but I guess that focusing on the meteor content, the weapons and enemies, are more important. The sound design and menus and loading screens also really take after the early footage and pre-release images, and even the PS2 beta of Manhunt 2. So the transition screen has that blue symbol in the middle of it. The pickup sounds are different, and there are some other minor differences.
Don't leave any witnesses.
The textures are also given an extra polish to them. They look like they're higher quality, maybe larger resolution and everything, but it goes the extra mile in making Manhunt 2 look less dated, and making the levels and characters and everything look nicer.
I'm sick of this. We're gonna find Judy and talk to her.
I would say overall, RazorMoon feels like the almost definitive cut content restoration. I'm not sure if it really fits that vibe, because there's still some stuff it's missing. I think the firearm executions are the biggest thing that it left out, that it absolutely should have included. Everything else is really nice, though, and I enjoy the way it revamped the different factions and designs, and it gave more variety for some items that only appear like a single time in levels, even if they would make more sense to appear more often. The custom models and personality clash are nice, and the choice to use the Project Militia in release therapy, I can see it working. I've been debating whether the Legion makes more sense as like a protection between Danny and Leo, but I think that's something where you could argue the symbolic value of it back and forth, and it would work either way, since Leo spends a lot of his missions fighting the Project Militia. I also thought that the overall commitment to restoring some of these cut concepts are good. I liked how it went the extra length of even like restoring the in-game file names for the levels, and also the loading screens and the transition animation that plays with like the static and everything. All that's meant to resemble the beta counterparts, and also the fact that there's actually still some variety. It isn't just where it's like a faction gets only one model, like the Project Militia have multiple models, the Legion have multiple models, the Pervs get more character models, stuff like that, where it gives the enemies you're facing more variety. And even the SWAT get an overhaul and redesign despite only appearing in one level. I think that's dedication right there. I would definitely recommend RazorMoon, though. It's a pretty straightforward installation, just loading it into an unmodified copy of Manhunt 2 for the PC. The additional textures are pretty straightforward to add on to, the ones that give it a higher resolution. I would say if I had any suggestions to make for the mod creator, I would say to bring back the 3 levels of firearm execution, to touch up a few of the menu wordings due to the misspellings. I don't know, maybe find a way to bring back the katana. I don't see an issue with that being in broadcast interrupted. I would also say a shout out for revamping how some of the puzzles work. I was actually pretty stumped on the one in level 3 where you get the fire axe and you have to impersonate another gang member to get inside the dungeon. it's reworked in a way that I overlooked initially. You still have the same goal, but finding the right weapon is different. And it's clever, because it makes you rethink how you look through the level and approach things differently. This doesn't come up too often, unfortunately, but when it does, it's really memorable. And I like that extra bit of care shown by the creator. That ingenuity of taking something that has strict limits and finding a way to creatively get around them. So with that all in mind, I'd say give RazorMoon a shot. You'd enjoy it if you liked Manhunt 2, and if you're really curious about the development process, what all things might have looked like if Rockstar Vienna kept developing it, and how some of the concept characters and factions would have appeared in the retail game. Honestly, a lot of them are a big step up, especially the Project Militia and the Red Kings. The Legion are a good redesign in of themselves, but I'm not sure how well they fit the whole asylum inmate design. They could have been their own thing, but that's a topic for another time. The new models, the beta models, look great, and the mod is just a blast. I look forward to comparing this to the Vienna cut when it inevitably releases, because I'm curious as to how they handle different beta features. So, thanks again to the creator of RazorMoon for unexpectedly releasing this gem of a mod, and glad I got the chance to play through it completely. Overall, I enjoyed it as a fan of the second Manhunt. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, take care.